Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to learn about the Mughal Empire. The subtopics covered in the Mughal Empire are the sources to reconstruct the age of the Mughals, Babur, Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, Aurangzeb, Mughal Administration, the Mughal Architecture. With the advent of the Mughals begins a new era of Indian history. The sources to reconstruct the age of the Mughals between 1526 and 1707. Literary sources: Abu Fazl's Ain-e-Akbari and Akbarnama. Abu Fazl was a great scholar as well as a leading historian of the Mughal age. He is best known for his historical works Ain-e-Akbari and the Akbarnama. Written in elegant Persian, Ain-e-Akbari gives information about the army and the legal and revenue systems of Akbar's administration, and also mentions about the commanding personality of Akbar. Let's see what are the sections or books which Ain-e-Akbari contains. The first one deals with the royal household. The second book is concerned with the military and civil services. Although there was nothing like a strong navy in the modern sense, Abu Fazl writes about Admiralty Department whose functions were to build boats and to recruit skilled seamen. The third book deals with imperial administration, including the administration of law and justice. Akbar granted to his people the right to present petition to the king for some legal action to be taken. The fourth book provides information about Hindu theology, that is, religious beliefs and emperor's fondness for books and persons with whom he could discuss religion and literature. The fifth book tells us about Abu Fazl's ancestors. It also presents an account of his life. Abu Fazl's another work, Akbarnama, is a primary source to have an idea about royal court in 16th century. Abu Fazl refers to the leading artists and painters of Akbar's reign. Akbarnama contains a number of paintings illustrating events of those days. Other literary works. A few other historical works of the age of Mughals are Nizamuddin Ahmad's Tabakat-e-Akbari and Emperor Jahangir's autobiography. Archaeological sources. Monuments. The Mughal architecture reveals a distinctive style blending the Persian with Indian norms of architecture. The Humayun's tomb, the Agra fort, the buildings at Fatehpur Sikri, Red Fort, the Jama Masjid at Delhi, and the Taj Mahal at Agra have many magnificent architectural features such as pronounced dome, the slender turrets, and the gates opening under the grand arches. Red Fort. It was constructed by Shah Jahan during the period 1639 to 1648. It is a huge structure made of sandstone and marble. Within this fort, there are magnificent buildings such as Diwan-e-Am and Diwan-e-Khas. It has a circumference of 2.4 kilometers. According to Bernier, a ditch around the walls remained in Mughal times filled with water and stocked with fish. The Lahori Gate facing the end of Chandni Chowk is very imposing, mainly because of the excellent side towers and the magnificent central arch. The Jama Masjid. This masjid was built by Shah Jahan during the period 1650 to 1656 under the superintendence of Sadullah Khan, the Vizier, the chief minister. There are three gateways to the mosque, approached by the majestic flight of steps on the south, north, and eastern sides. The three gateways give access to an open court paved with large squares of red sandstone. On the west side of the court is the mosque proper, surmounted by the three marble domes. The central dome is the largest and the highest. Taj Mahal. The most outstanding monument built by Shah Jahan is the Taj Mahal at Agra on the banks of the river Yamuna. This grand mausoleum was built in the memory of his beloved queen Mumtaz Mahal. The Taj Mahal is rightly regarded as one of the wonders of the world for its majesty and splendor. The grace and loveliness of these structures are examined in detail later in the chapter under the heading The Mughal Architecture. Babur, 1526 to 1530. Babur had inherited from his father a small kingdom in Central Asia when he was only 12 years old. When he grew older, he conquered Kabul. Like other earlier invaders, Babur was drawn to India by its amazing wealth. He knew that India was a land of gold and riches. Before his final conquest, Babur undertook no less than 4 expeditions to India. The Battle of Panipat. Ibrahim Lodi, the ruler of Delhi, and Babur's forces met on the battlefield of Panipat in April 1526. Babur's army was numerically inferior but had with him the firearms like large, powerful guns. Moreover, he had experience of veteran general. His victory was indeed a success of consummate leadership and superior weapons that he had acquired from Turkey. Babur was now the ruler of Delhi, though not yet the king of India. The Battle of Kanwa. The most formidable chieftain against whom Babur had yet to fight was Rana Sanga of Mewar, who had organized a huge confederacy of Rajputs against the Mughal invader. Several Afghan chieftains also sided with the Rajput king. Sultan Mahmud Lodi, another son of Sultan Sikandar Lodi, whom Rana Sanga had declared as the ruler of Delhi, joined him. Such a formidable combination unnerved Babur's soldiers. In order to infuse new courage into the hearts of his men, Babur declared that they were engaged in a religious war jihad. In a dramatic gesture, he broke his wine cups and vowed not to take strong drinks any longer. He charged them with new fervor. This produced the desired effect. The defeat of Rajputs was complete. The victory at Kanwa, village near Agra, in March 1527 gave Babur complete control over Delhi-Agra region. Babur then undertook the conquest of a number of forts east of Agra, foremost among them being Gwalior and Dholpur. Babur next defeated the combined forces of Bengal and Bihar in 1529. He died in 1530. An assessment. Babur laid the first stone of that splendid empire which during Akbar's regime got an orderly administration. He was a man of outstanding ability, valor, and artistic temperament. He was also the writer of great elegance, proficient in Persian, Arabic, and Turkish languages. His memoirs, Tuzuki-Barbari, also called Baburnama, hold a high place in the history of literature. The book is an invaluable source material for knowing the times he lived through and his daring adventures. Humayun, 1530 to 1556. Humayun's effective rule lasted only for 10 years because he was driven out of India in 1540 and regained his throne only in 1555. There was political confusion and economic unrest when Humayun ascended the throne in 1530. The Afghans had not been subdued and under Sher Khan, that is Sher Shah Suri, were nursing the hope of driving the Mughals out of India. Humayun had to face Sher Shah's forces at Chausa on the way in June 1539. It was decisive defeat and Mughal armies suffered substantial losses. Humayun somehow managed to reach Agra. He lost another battle at Kannauj in May 1540 and thereafter wandered from place to place. Ultimately, the ruler of Iran provided him with a place to stay. With his help, Humayun could recapture Kabul and Kandahar in 1545. Sher Shah died in 1545. He was succeeded by his son Islam Shah, who died in 1554. A war of succession broke out among various claimants to the throne. In 1555, Humayun was able to recover Delhi. Akbar, 1556 to 1605. Humayun did not live long to consolidate his power. In 1556, he died from a fall from his library building in Purana Qila, Delhi. Akbar was only 13 years of age when he was proclaimed the Emperor of India. It was a difficult position for the empire. The Afghan chiefs were still in occupation of greater portion of Sher Shah's dominions. However, Bairam Khan, the Akbar's tutor and his father's trusted officer, rose to the occasion. He became the regent and looked after the kingdom until 1560. Second Battle of Panipat. Soon after Akbar's accession, Hemu, a nephew of Sher Shah Suri, captured Agra and was on march to Delhi. The Mughal forces met Hemu's army on historic battlefield of Panipat in November 1556. After a fierce battle, the Afghan army was defeated and Hemu was captured and killed. That was the end of Afghan resistance to the Mughals. Akbar takes the reins of government into his own hands. In 1560, Akbar had finally taken over the reins of administration in his own hands. Bairam Khan chose to go to Mecca. On his way to Mecca, he was slain by an Afghan in January 1561. Akbar's claim to greatness lies in four of his astonishing achievements: political unification of the subcontinent, a system of orderly administration, land revenue system, and racial and religious conciliation in the country. Akbar's Conquest, political unification of the subcontinent. Akbar followed a policy of conquest for the expansion of his empire. Some of his important conquests between 1560 and 1576 were those of Malwa, Garh-Katanga, a number of Gond and Rajput principalities, the major part of the Rajasthan, Gujarat, Bengal and Bihar. After the conquest of Gujarat, Akbar extended his authority over the Deccan. The Mughals annexed Berar in 1596. That gave them a permanent footing in the Deccan. The Mughals gained a victory over Ahmednagar in 1597. Khandesh was included in the Mughal Empire in 1601. In the Deccan, Akbar's dominions include Ahmednagar, Bijapur and Golconda. Akbar's authority had also become firmly established in Assam in the east. In northwest, the frontiers of empire extended up to Kabul and Kandahar. Akbar's Mansabdari system, revenue reforms and policy of religious pacification. Akbar was a statesman and a brilliant administrator. Mansabdari system and the army. Akbar created an imperial service based on merit and graded according to military rank. It was called the Mansabdari system. The lowest rank was that of 10, whereas the highest was 5,000 for nobles. The prince received higher mansabs, the ranks of 7,000 each. The mansabdars held their appointments directly from the emperor. They got their remuneration in cash, not in land grants. In addition to the meetings, their personal expenses, the mansabdar had to maintain out of his salary a required quota of horses, elephants, mules, and carts. The Mughal mansabdars acted both as military commanders and civil administrators. Mansabdar status was not hereditary. Land revenue. Land revenue reforms were introduced in 1580 when Todar Mal became the Diwan-e-Ashraf, the head of land revenue department. Todar Mal devised a system based on a survey and measurement of land, classification of land according to its productive capacity, and fixation of rates payable in cash or kind by cultivators. Another important change that Akbar made was introduction of the Shala system. Under the system, the average produce of different kinds of lands as well as the prices of last 10 dha, which is years, were collected from the government records. The land revenue was fixed at 1/3 of the average produce. The benefit of the system was that there was no necessity of settling the land revenue every year. The state advanced loans to the needy farmers. As a result, agriculture flourished that boosted trade and industry also. Law and justice. Akbar regarded speedy administration of justice as one of his important duties. The chief Qazi was the foremost judicial officer in realm. He nominated Qazis for the provinces. The bigger towns had their own Qazis. The villages settled their disputes through institution of panchayat. Emperor's court was the final court of justice. Racial and religious pacification. Akbar sought to bring about racial and religious pacification in the country. The jizya or poll tax on non-Muslims was abolished. State services were opposed for the Hindus. The emperor patronized Hindu writers and artists. He had matrimonial alliances with the Rajput families. In 1580, the emperor promulgated a new cult called Deen-Ilahi. It was based on the belief that there is only one God and required its members to accept virtues such as courage, chastity, and justice. It also demanded loyalty to the emperor. The new cult could not have many followers and it was never imposed on people. Akbar ranks with the Mauryan emperor Ashoka as one of the greatest rulers of India. Jahangir 1605 to 1627. Salim succeeded to the throne at Agra without any difficulty because his younger brothers had died during Akbar's lifetime. He assumed the new name of Jahangir, which means holder of the world. He promulgated 12 rules which included arrangements for the safety of highways, abolition of many cess, prohibition of sale of intoxicating liquor, prohibition of forcible seizure of property, and prohibition of slaughter of animals, especially cows, on certain days. His conquests. The conflict with Mewar, which had continued for nearly 4 decades, was brought to an end by Jahangir in 1615. In 1616, Prince Khurram conquered Ahmednagar fort that was lost to Mughals in 1610. For this victory, Jahangir conferred on him the title of Shah Jahan, King of the World. Jahangir married Meherunisa in 1611. He renamed her first Nur Mahal and then Nur Jahan, Light of the World. She was the widow of a Persian nobleman, Sher Afghan. She wanted her son-in-law Prince Shahryar to be emperor's successor. Shah Jahan's accession to the throne. Jahangir died in 1627 at Rajouri on his way back from Kashmir to Lahore. Prince Shahryar lost no time in proclaiming himself emperor at Lahore. In the meantime, Shah Jahan marched to the capital Agra and ascended the throne in 1628. Shah Jahan 1628 to 1658. The reign of Shah Jahan marks the climax of the Mughal Empire. Shah Jahan modeled the imperial court after the style of old Persian monarchs. The exquisite peacock throne and the celebrated Kohinoor added to the magnificence of his court. Shah Jahan patronized men of letters and arts. War of Succession. Shah Jahan was taken seriously ill in 1657. A war of succession began among the 4 brothers Dara, the higher designate, Shuja, governor of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha, Aurangzeb, governor of Deccan provinces, and Murad, governor of Gujarat and Multan. Shuja began to march towards Agra. He was defeated by force led by Dara's son near Varanasi. The combined armies of Aurangzeb and Murad defeated Dara's troops. Aurangzeb then imprisoned his father Shah Jahan and brother Murad and declared himself Emperor of India. Aurangzeb 1658 to 1707. Aurangzeb ruled for nearly 50 years. He was a seasoned general. At its height, his rule extended over almost the entire subcontinent from Kashmir in the north to River Kaveri in the south, and from Kabul in the west to Chittagong in the east. He, however, reversed Akbar's policy of religious toleration and spent the last days of his reign attempting to suppress rebellions. His religious policy. Aurangzeb was an orthodox Sunni Muslim. His personal life and austerity won him the support of Muslim clergy who called him Zinda Pir, a living saint. In 1669, he forbade the buildings of new temples. He reimposed the old hated jizya poll tax on Hindus. This naturally cost him the sympathy and support of the Hindus. The revolts of Jats, Satnamis, Sikhs and Rajputs. In 1669, the Jats of Mathura revolted under the leadership of Gokula, the Zamindar of Tilpat. They were defeated but could not be crushed permanently. In 1672, the Satnamis revolted. The Satnamis dressed like mendicants, but they were mostly peasants and artisans. The emperor had to march in person to beat them down. Discontent among the Sikhs. Aurangzeb's religious policy caused discontent among the Sikhs also. Guru Tej Bahadur was captured and taken to Delhi. He was given the option of embracing Islam or facing death. On his refusal to renounce his faith, the Guru was beheaded at a place called Chandni Chowk in Delhi. The Mughals attacked the fort of Anandpur in 1704. Guru Gobind Singh fought heroically. His two sons, Zorawar Singh and Fateh Singh, were captured and bricked up alive when they refused to embrace Islam. Aurangzeb's relation with Rajputs. His relations with Rajputs were never cordial. The emperor did not allow Jaswant Singh's child to inherit the throne of Marwar in 1678. As a result, the Rajputs of Marwar and Mewar joined hands, fought against the Mughals. Later, Aurangzeb tried to patch up the quarrel with Rajputs of Mewar. Rise of the Marathas. The Marathas had become sufficiently powerful by early 1630s. It was Shivaji from 1627 to 1680 in whom the Marathas could find their best captain. Shivaji captured several fortresses including those of Torna, Chakan and Purandar. In 1674, Shivaji was crowned as an independent king. He was glorified as Chhatrapati and Devaraja, taking the vows to protect Brahmins and cows and to uphold Dharma. By the time of his death in 1680, he had carved out a large kingdom which included substantial territory in peninsular India. He was not only a successful military leader but an able administrator as well. Aurangzeb in the Deccan. Aurangzeb could annex Bijapur in 1686 and then came to the fall of Golconda. From 1700 to 1705, Aurangzeb, though ill, managed to drag himself from the siege of one fort to another. After nearly 25 years of direct military action in southern India, Aurangzeb died at Aurangabad in 1707 with little success, but substantial loss of wealth and prestige and self-esteem. Mughal Administration. The administrative system of Mughals was partly designed on the pattern of Persian and Egyptian monarchs and partly based on Indian traditions. The administration was mainly the work of Akbar. The administrative machinery developed by Akbar was maintained under Jahangir and Shah Jahan. The monarch. Akbar believed that royalty is a light emanating from God, a ray from the sun. The Mughal state was a centralized autocracy. In other words, the king's powers were unlimited. He was the head of the government, the commander of armed forces, and fountain of justice. He was also the chief legislator, because his word was law. But rulers like Akbar did not wish to base their powers on the sword. They consulted their ministers, although it was a matter of emperor's wish to accept their advice or not. They also felt bound to obey religious scriptures as well as Indian traditions. They were, so to say, benevolent despots concerned about their people and good of the state. But Aurangzeb lacked the qualities needed to be a successful ruler of India. departments of government position held by chief officers of the state. The highest position below the emperor was held by the vizier, but the exchequer finance department was in the hands of Diwan. Other important departments were the military pay and accounts office held by Mir Bakshi, imperial household department held by Khan-e-Zaman, and the judiciary under the chief Qazi. The other officers somewhat lower in status were Daroga-e-Topkhana, head of the artillery, the Daroga of the mint, and the Mir Arz, the officer in charge of petitions seeking favor of the monarch. Mansabdari System, military commanders and civil administrators. We have already seen that Akbar created an imperial service based on merit and graded according to military rank, the lowest rank being that of 10 and the highest that of 5,000 reserved for the nobles. The Mughal Mansabdars acted both as military commanders and civil administrators. The members of royal family held the ranks ranging from 7,000 to 10,000. Under the later Mughals, the system started losing its efficiency. Corruption had crept in. The gap between the rank held by the officer and the number of troops maintained by him very much widened. Therefore, Shah Jahan had to give much attention to the appointment of highly competent persons as Mansabdars. Land revenue system. The land revenue was the main source of revenue for the government, although there were other sources of income also. We have seen that Akbar got the land surveyed when Todar Mal became the Diwan. He assessed the revenue according to the productivity of the soil, and state demand was fixed at 1/3 of the land produce. The revenue system could not remain that efficient as it should have been when the administrative machinery got out of gear during Aurangzeb's reign. The army and the navy. The armed forces were composed of infantry, cavalry, artillery, navy, and war elephants. The artillery consisted of two sections, heavy guns and light artillery. The heavy guns were used for assaulting forts. Navy was used for suppression of piracy as well as for the war. With the development of the flint guns, the infantry had also become a powerful fighting force during the 17th century. An important factor that harmed the efficiency of Mughal army was that the army looked like a moving city, with a portion of the harem, that is, wives of the nobles and chief officers, their attendants, musicians, and soldiers moving from place to place during a war. This sort of affairs naturally brought in luxury and indiscipline in the army. Law and justice. The chief Qazi was the principal judicial officer in the realm. He appointed Qazis for the provinces. Justice was administered by Qazis, Muftis, and Mir Adals. The Muftis acted as advocates. They interpreted the Muslim law. Fines could be imposed, and severe punishments like amputation of hand or leg could be inflicted by courts without any reference to emperor, but capital punishments like death penalty required emperor's sanction. Above all these courts was a court of emperor himself. The provinces and smaller units of administration. The empire was divided into provinces called subas. In 1580, Akbar divided his empire into 12 provinces. Towards the close of Shah Jahan's reign, the number of provinces had risen to nearly 20. The important provinces were generally under the prince of royal blood. The provincial governor, called Subadar or Sipasalar or commander-in-chief, was at the head of civil and military administration. The subas were further divided into sarkars and parganas, which corresponded to the modern-day districts, and tehsils, subdivisions respectively. Let's see the Mughal architecture. Mughal architecture reveals a distinctive style, blending the Persian with Indian forms of architecture. Its salient features are the pronounced dome, the slender turrets at the corners, the palace hall supported on pillars, and the gate, which takes the form of a huge semi-dome sunk in front wall. The actual entrance is a small rectangular opening under an arch. Humayun's tomb. During the early years of Akbar's reign, Humayun's tomb was built at Delhi under the instructions of Humayun's wife Hamida Banu Begum. The building rests on a high square platform and has archways on each side. Each archway opens into a room. A unique feature of the building is its bulbous marble dome. Marble has been freely used in the construction of the building. Buland Darwaza at Fatehpur Sikri. The most ambitious building project of Akbar was his new capital Fatehpur Sikri, situated 43 kilometers west of Agra. The great Sufi saint Sheikh Salim Chishti lived here, and that might have influenced Akbar in choosing the place for his new capital. The construction of the capital was started in 1569 AD and completed in 1586 AD. It had a number of religious edifices and residential buildings. Buland Darwaza was erected at Fatehpur Sikri in 1601 AD to commemorate the conquest of Gujarat. Its main features are as follows. It's a superb gateway 40 meters high and 35 meters wide. The total height of the structure is about 54 meters from the ground level. It is the largest gateway in India and one of the biggest in the world. It is made of red sandstone and decorated with beautiful carvings and inlay work in white marble. Its imposing facade is in the shape of a semi-octagon. The broad rectangular border on its central face carries inscriptions in beautiful lettering. A verse from the teachings of Jesus Christ was also included in the inscriptions, revealing the religious tolerance and broad-mindedness of Akbar. Red Fort, Delhi. The Red Fort in Delhi was constructed by Shah Jahan during the period 1639 to 1648. It is a huge structure made of red sandstone and marble. Its features are as follows. It has massive walls around it. The walls of the fort are covered with a succession of turrets, domes, balconies, windows, and perforated screens which make the exterior of the fort extremely attractive. The fort has two gateways. The western gateway, known as the Lahori Gate, was used for ceremonial purpose, and other gateway for private use. Within this fort, there are magnificent buildings including a public Darbar Hall, Diwan-e-Am and Diwan-e-Khas, in addition to residential apartments which are for the royal family. The Diwan-e-Khas is a lavishly ornamented hall where the peacock throne was placed. The hall was used by emperor to give audience to the princes of royal family, nobles, and other important dignitaries. The Diwan-e-Khas is indeed a noble building, certainly the most highly ornamented of all Shah Jahan's buildings. An inscription engraved on its wall reads, "If there is a paradise on the face of the earth, it is this and none but this." Every year on August 15th, the Prime Minister of India addresses the nation from its ramparts to commence the Independence Day celebrations. Jama Masjid, Delhi. It was built by Shah Jahan during the period 1650 to 1656. It was one of the most elegant buildings of its kind. Its architectural features are as follows. It is built on a lofty basement about 9 meters high and 1170 square meters in area. There are 3 gateways to the mosque, approached by majestic flight of steps on south, north, and eastern sides. The eastern gateway, the highest and largest of all, was reserved for the use of Mughal emperors only. The three gateways give access to an open courtyard. At its four external corners are placed 12-pillar kiosks surmounted by marble domes. The central dome is the largest and highest. On the north and southern sides, there are two elegant minarets, each rising to a total height of about 40 meters and divided into three stages, each having a projected gallery. The face of the spacious prayer hall consists of 11 arcs, of which the central arc rises far above the roof level. The mosque is indeed one of the finest specimens of Mughal architecture. Its spacious courtyard, the tall minarets, and its elegant domes, they all help to produce a pleasing effect. Taj Mahal, Agra. The most outstanding monument built by Shah Jahan is the Taj Mahal at Agra on the banks of the river Yamuna. This grand mausoleum was built in the memory of his beloved queen, Mumtaz Mahal. It has been described as a dream in marble designed by fairies and completed by jewelers. Ustad Isa was an architect who designed the monument. Its main features are as follows. It is made up of pure white marble. As a monument of love, it is unsurpassed in the world. It stands on a raised platform and is surmounted by cupolas at each corner. The bulbous dome in the center has an appearance of an inverted lotus. There are four smaller domes at the four corners of the building. Four minarets stand at each corner of the terrace. The outer walls and the interior walls are richly decorated with exquisite inlay work and calligraphy.